Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Hi/X/longtime lurker, first time posting here. Anyone interested in Far East spooky stuff? Be me, German descent. My parents moved to Korea before I was born. Because of Dad going on business trips all the time, plus general parental conflict, Korean friends' family pretty much raised me as their own. New family is crazy superstitious, which is weird since most of the country now believes in Christianity. I lived in the mountains with a Korean family for most of my childhood, then moved to the city around high school age. I honestly didn't even consider all this to be creepy. It was just a part of life to me. Recently, I moved to the US, and whenever I mention stuff that happened in my childhood, my new friends lose their shit. I guess I'll post a few and see if you guys might be interested. Here's a little background. Korean foster family is from North Korea. They all came down during the Korean War. Superstitious grandfather, Christian grandmother, both maternal, parents, friends with my parents, who always wanted to GTFO of the mountains. Daughter who's my age and was pretty much my only friend. Grandfather is the patriarch, and what he says goes. This includes all sorts of weird traditional ceremonies and rituals, and a lot of creepy hiking fishing trips. Generally a pretty chill family. Lots of conflict about grandfather's superstitious bullshit though. And you can kinda see the mom kinda losing her mind over the years for some unknown reason. Live in the middle of nowhere. You have to drive like 30 minutes to reach the nearest town. Sorry if this is all jumbled. This is my first time rationally looking back and writing it down. If there's anything I can do to make it better, do tell me. This is about a ritual we used to do a few times every year. Apparently there are families in the city that also perform it, but none of my other Korean friends have gone through quite what I was used to. On the death day of his ancestors, grandfather sets up a mini shrine and prepares a ton of food. It only has to be specific kinds of dishes, and has to be arranged according to color and size. After setting up the food on special tables in the living room, grandfather reads a handwritten letter generally following the lines of, "Everyone misses you, rest well, please take this offering of food in peace," and burns it. He sometimes adds a line about me, something like, "Please excuse the boy, we are taking care of him," as the ritual is usually only performed by the family. Everyone takes turns bowing in a special ceremonial way. When everyone is done bowing, grandfather turns off all lights, and everyone hides in the kitchen for about half an hour. You always have to clear your throat before walking out again, to not startle the ancestors, grandfather says. Food is partially eaten, utensils are dirty, and the seat cushions are warm. This one time when I was about 6, the mom got tired of making the specific dishes. They're time-consuming since they take up the whole day if not more, and replace them with easier ones. Grandfather flies into a rage, but we don't have time to redo everything. Do you realize what you've done and all that? Finish bowing and hide in the kitchen, hear rattling and banging from the living room. The kids get scared shitless, so me and the daughter hold on to the grandfather while he swears under his breath. An hour later, the noise stops. Grandfather clears his throat, goes outside, turns on the light. The dishes are overturned, candles are out. Something that looks like either dried blood or watery fecal matter, can't remember, is strewn on the shrine. The mom always made the correct dishes from then on. Nine-tailed foxes, man. These bastards are creepy as shit, but the media now portrays them as some kind of cutie pie furry's dream girl. B13. Sorry in advance about the stories not being in timed order. One day I went into the mountains with the daughter, I'll call her Jin, to find some mushrooms. Bring one of the family Jindo dogs just to be safe. Those puppers are protective as hell. Having a good time and exploring all around when Ogu the Jindo starts to bark like crazy. We see a teenage-looking girl, just kinda standing there, wearing old-fashioned clothes, pick kinda related. But since this is a rural area, think nothing of it, go say hi. Glad we found someone else around our age. New girl says her family moved into the empty plot about 15 minutes away. Ogu is still barking at her, but we brush it off. He's just being protective. Hang out with her for a bit. She keeps touching me, commenting on my hair and eyes, saying I'm exotic and cute. Totally gonna get a .jpeg. The sun starts going down, so we ask her if she wants to come over and have dinner with us. No, but only Anon can come over to my place and see my room if he wants. It's getting dark and brother instincts kick in, so I tell the new girl I'll drop by later and take Jin home. Later tell grandfather what happened. Idiot boy, the empty plot isn't for sale. He tells us to take a Jindo wherever we go from then on. We meet her a few times later that week. She progressively gets more and more seductive. Dogs bark at her, so just go home. We just ran home and told grandfather what happened. A few days later, Ogu brings home a fox he killed. Never see the girl again. Basically 9-tailed foxes, gu mi ho, shapeshift into women whose corpses they eat. They seduce and kill men whose livers they eat. Once they eat 1,000 livers, they turn into real humans or something. Grandfather said there are 2 types of ghosts, Yu Ryong, which are just docile spirits, and Gui Shin, which are malicious spirits that usually just want closure. There was a small lake near where we lived. Grandfather always told us to take a white Jindo when we went near the lake, as there was a Gui Shin who lived there. Gui Shin who live in bodies of water are called Mul Gui Shin, but this one was also a Chun Yu Gui Shin, a virgin who had been wronged. Occasionally, from far away, you can make out a youngish-looking woman who looks soaked as hell just sitting on the dock. Always thought she looked lonely and sad instead of angry. She didn't do much but kinda hissed almost like a cat and disappeared whenever she saw the white Jindo. His name was Jingu. This one time when I'm about 9, I got brave and walked out to the lake. Still pretty far away, but I can see the Gui Shin sitting on the dock again. Being the oddest I am, I call out something like, "Lady, are you okay?" Gui Shin gets up, starts walking toward me. When I say walking, it was more like a cross between walking and gliding. Kinda like when you stand still and look at someone going through one of those moving runways in an airport. Anyways, the Gui Shin keeps coming closer, and suddenly I realize that I forgot to bring a white Jindo. Oh shit. The Gui Shin is close as hell now, and I can see that her facial features are all kinda blacked out and melted all together, like ink mixing in water. I scream. She screams too, but stops when I stop making noise and sort of studies me. She makes a weird gurgling noise like someone is trying to laugh underwater. "Your head is yellow." She walks, glides back to the dock. I run all the way back home, the piss cooling on my pants. The next day, grandfather makes me bring some food as an offering to the lake, to thank the Gui Shin for not harming me. I like to think that I made her day. Here's some info on the Jindos, Korea's national dog. Kinda looks like a Shiba, but taller, leggier, and just more brutal. Comes in 3 colors, white, tan, and black and tan. Hardy little dudes. Skinny as hell, but they can take out your legs like it's nothing. Protective about territory. Stubborn bastards these are. You can't train them like a Labrador retriever to do cute tricks or sit for their food or not bite annoying children. But they'll give their lives to protect you and your home. In Korean superstition, white Jindos chase away evil spirits. Tan Jindos can fight their way out of anything. And black Jindos make spirits accept you as one of them. Grandfather rarely had black Jindos. He was a fighter, so he had a bunch of tan Jindos and some white ones for the kids, and I'm pretty sure the shotgun he had in his closet was illegal. You can't own a gun in Korea, LOL. Pick related.
That sounds really badass.
They're great dogs, just not for everyone. I personally wouldn't recommend them as pets. They're like huskies when it comes to trainability, except more stubborn, more antisocial, and way more aggressive. Definitely not city dogs by a long shot. They saved my life more times than I count, though. Another great Korean breed is the Sap Salgay, pick related, although I don't think they're as popular as the Jindo. These guys are also believed to ward off spirits, and we had a few of them all the time too, but they're way friendlier and better with kids. I guess the main difference would be that if you're out in the mountains with your dog and run into a spirit cryptid, the Jindo will let you run home and fight the thing to death, while the Sap Salgay will try to de-escalate the situation and kinda lead you back home. The thing about growing up in rural Korea as a foreigner is that if you run into a spirit, they're either going to be extra hostile towards you, or they're going to be too busy laughing at you to kill you. The closest school was half an hour away, so grandfather would drive me and Jin to school every morning. There were only 7 kids in our grade, only 3 graduated. The rest either died or moved to the city. The kids were pretty cruel and ganged up on me a lot, calling me names like Yellow Monkey or Yankee. I'm German LMAO. Grandfather, though school was shit, so he let me skip school as long as I showed up for exams and passed them. When I was 10, he got me my very own white jindo, which I named Baekgu. Exploring the mountains and picking and eating mushrooms one day, hear something rustle in the bushes and Baekgu starts whimpering and cowering. A black dog-like creature slinks out from the bushes, freeze in my tracks. I wasn't sure if he was friendly or malicious, but Baekgu was clearly scared and pissing himself. It looks like a cross between a big dog and a leopard, but has a long, almost trunk-like snout. The fur looks like it's ablaze and smoldering, although there is no fire or heat. The thing makes a snarling and growling motion, but no sound comes out of its mouth. Convinced that this is how I die. I hear a gunshot go off in the distance, and remember that grandfather has his illegal gun. Another gunshot goes off, this time so close to my ears my whole skull feels like it's ringing and I can see the bullet whiz by. The thing chases after the bullet and is gone. I hightail it out of there with my dog and grandfather. What I ran into turned out to be a Bulgasari. They eat fire and metal and are highly hostile, apparently. As this one had claimed the deep mountains as its home, we were forbidden to go that deep from then on. B14. Go to school one day because screw it. When school ends, leave my book bag in the classroom and go out with Jin to throw out the trash. No janitors at school, so kids help out with the work. Go to pick up a bag while Jin waits outside. The teacher is standing with her back to the door, just kind of staring at something on the wall. Say goodbye, she doesn't respond. Get slightly nervous, so ask her if she's okay. She turns around and oh shit, she doesn't have a face. Dalgail Gui Shin are malicious spirits that act just like people, but have no face, hence the name, Dalgail equals egg. From what I know, they'll usually leave you alone as long as you don't point out their lack of face or act disgusted. The thing acts just like the teacher, and it's just heading way too close to the uncanny valley, now creeped out, but also kind of pissed because I'm a moody teenager and I just want to go home. It starts talking, and even its voice sounds like my teacher. Anon, do you think I'm pretty? You don't even have a face. I don't want to piss these things off because Korean ghosts get vicious when they're mad. If I say you're pretty, it will say I'm lying because it clearly doesn't have a face. If I say you're not pretty, it will say I'm disgusted at its lack of face. I just want to go home and play with my goddamn dog and go fishing. Start singing the Korean national anthem really loudly. Things start screaming, sounding equally angry. I hear the classroom door open and the screaming stops abruptly. Anon, what are you doing? It's the actual teacher. Run home and rant about Guishins with Jin. Things started falling apart by my mid-teen years. I believe this was because grandfather was getting old and weak, but it just may be because I was pretty messed up emotionally and whatever spirits out there could sense it. B16. Doing some chores around the yard when I hear familiar voices. It's my mom and dad. I walk towards their voices, kind of tearing up because I haven't seen them since I was like 4, and the only reason I remember them are the phone calls that come once every few months. Angry, but glad at the same time. My parents are standing at the edge of grandfather's property. Anon, it's us. Let's go home now. So many things I want to yell at them, but it's like I'm too choked up. Remember, grandfather didn't tell me my parents would be coming for me. I'm going to bring grandfather. Oh, but Anon, aren't you going to let your mother hug her own son? Notice something's wrong about it, but too emotionally shaken. Start crying and kind of stand there. The dogs are barking like crazy. I can hear Jin calling me for dinner from the house. My parents keep urging me to come over and give them a hug, go home, talk to them. Come on, son, it's going to be a long drive home. Wait a second. Then where's your car? They go quiet, but soon try to play it off as a joke. I keep asking where their car is. They get angry and start threatening me with punishments, saying I'm breaking mom's heart, etc. I'm still sobbing and hyperventilating, not sure whether to go to them or run back home. I think Jin noticed and told grandfather, because he came out with a dog on leash. The dog starts growling and this old leathery Korean fart bellows like a goddamn ox. Leave my grandson alone, you creatures. My parents let out something like a cross between a bird screeching and an old door creaking, then disappear into the grass. For some reason, grandfather never speaks of this again. This shit still chokes me up a little.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
I have a few more stories that aren't too mundane. Oh look, there's a ghost. Oh, now he's gone. So I'll be posting them for the next few hours. Here's how our toughest dog died. Relatives come to visit for the weekend. Jin's cousins come too. One is a guy about 5 years older. The other is a guy 2 years older than us. There's also a girl, but she just sits in the kitchen and does Bible study with grandmother all day, so we just ignore her. We try to get along at first, but the cousins are just too boisterous, yelling cuss words in the mountains, throwing rocks at deer, etc. Eventually, we just let them do their own thing. It turns out while Jin, grandfather, and I went fishing, these assholes went into the mountains and found a small family graveyard. Korean family graveyards are tiny, with 4 or 5 bodies buried at most, especially if you find one in the rural areas. Anyways, these assholes trashed the place, kicking down shrines and littering everywhere. They came home after they heard someone crying and got scared. Grandfather is seething, but he doesn't say anything. He doesn't expect city kids to understand. For the next few days, we see angry ghosts at the edge of our property hissing at our dogs, but not able to come any closer because of our white jindos. We leave offerings around the property, but they're pissed as hell and won't stop trashing our vegetable gardens. Grandfather genuinely looks stumped. One day, our most prized tan jindo disappears. We think he may be hunting something, but he doesn't come home for days. Eventually, we go out to look for him, find his body ripped to shreds, strewn around the trashed graveyard. His intact head is in front of the damaged shrine. Grandfather quietly covers his dog's head with a towel. Doesn't talk to us for a few days. Just smokes his pipe out on the patio and stares into the mountains. I still miss the dog. I always think he sacrificed himself as an offering to save everyone else. In Korean mythology, magpies are harbingers of good luck and prosperity. It's said if you hear a magpie cawing in the morning, it means you'll have a friendly visitor later in the day. I like to think that magpies acted like a sort of guardian angel to me. My room is on the 2nd floor, right next to the persimmon tree in the garden. Magpies love persimmons, and there are always a bunch of them near the house. Grandfather and I make a habit of leaving the persimmons at the very top when picking them from the tree, so that the magpies can help themselves. This is just at the level of my window, so I guess the magpies kinda associated seeing my face with food and general good vibes. Come home from school one day. For some reason I'm really tired, so I took a nap. Magpies won't stop cawing though. Some even bang and peck the window. Like an autist, I yell, "Shut up, birds," and try to sleep. They're too loud. Swearing, I get up and storm out of the room to sleep somewhere else. As I turn to close the door, I catch a glimpse of something stuck to the ceiling. It's a motherfucking ghost. As I stare, its head turns towards me and it gives me the ugliest look. But before it can react to me leaving the room, the magpies start cawing and banging at the window and it turns its attention to the birds. Run out and alert grandfather. Guy grabs a pot and pan, runs up to my room, flings open the door, and starts banging the pot and pan while yelling, "Get the fuck out." Ghost hisses and slithers into the cracks of the wall. We knew someone died in that house before we moved in. We just didn't know the guy had hanged himself in my room. We leave out an offering that night and I slept on the couch. The next morning the offering is gone and we don't see that ghost again for a good 3 months. Whenever the ghost appears again, the magpies do their squawk and I fetch grandfather. Feels pretty good having a personal army of magpies. Last story. B-17 start kinda having a thing for Jin, but we don't show it because A, it's a bit like incest, and B, her mother is completely off the hook at this point and would kill us both. One day grandfather goes to tend to his berry patches and doesn't return. We look for him a few hours later and find him on the ground, looking peaceful and composed as hell, like he just laid down to take a nap and never got up. Doctors tell us he died of a heart attack. I'm stunned. The man who took me in after my own family put me aside, taught me all the values I ever held dear, basically kept me alive all these years in a patch of mountain crawling with unknown creatures, was gone just like that. Jin is also inconsolable, and we spend a lot of time sitting out by grandfather's favorite fishing spot, not saying anything. We bury him in a private plot. Jin and I go to his grave every day to clean his shrine. A few months later, my grandmother sold our house and we moved to the city. All the dogs are sold too, including mine. I'm too shocked to pretend nothing happened and live with my adopted family, and too angry to live with my biological family. Grandmother gives me enough money to rent a small apartment, barely larger than a closet, couldn't focus on anything, so I failed my college entrance exams. Barely scraped by, flipping burgers and working at gas stations, convenience stores, and stocking warehouses. In a way, it's more peace than I've ever known, as I see no ghosts in my apartment. Sometimes I wonder about what happened to Jin as we grew apart, and I knew her mother was off her rocker and sometimes physically hurt her. Meanwhile, Jin is accepted to a good college. We decided to go to grandfather's grave and show him the acceptance letter, as well as perform the ritual, and just don't talk to each other ever again. It was getting too weird. The whole family follows us for some reason. It's getting dark. Just before we leave, Jin places her acceptance letter on grandfather's shrine. Suddenly, her mother starts screaming, "He's dead, you crazy kids. He can't hear or see any of this shit." She accuses grandfather of being crazy, and then yells at Jin for being stupid enough to believe all that bullshit. We try to argue back, but you saw it too. But she's raving at this point. Eventually, she calms down enough for Jin's dad to take her back to the car. We just sat in front of grandfather's grave for the longest time. When we finally head back, I swear I can see a bluish flame-looking thing flickering above the grave. Weeks pass, getting paid just enough to get by, and trying to forget everything that ever happened in my childhood. One night I hear incessant tapping on my window, almost like how the Magpies used to tap. Wait, I live in the basement. There is no window. Feel a deep, shuddering, cold feeling in my guts. I always thought it was alerting me to a spirit nearby, but now I realize it's fear. I run wildly into the street and catch a taxi to grandmother's house. I can hear screaming inside. The door bursts open and Jin runs out, blood on her arms and her face as white as paper. Something in her mother's head had snapped, and she had grabbed a kitchen knife and slashed at Jin. What about your dad and grandmother? Dad's visiting his family, and grandmother was too afraid to come out of her room. Jin swears up and down that just as her mother was about to seriously stab her, a blue flame flickered out of nowhere and lit her skirt on fire. I try my best to calm her down and call 911. Things settle down from there. Jin and I realize nobody else will understand us as well as each other. We're getting married next winter. Her mother is diagnosed with schizophrenia. Grandmother goes to live with Jin's aunt. Thanks, Grandpapa. I'll hang around for a bit for any questions. Thanks for hanging on with me for the ride, /x/.
It wasn't specified whether or not the guy who died was a relative or not. One would assume so, however, if it was family land.
Great catch there. The land had been owned by grandfather's family for generations, even before the separation and the Korean War. His side of the family has always had a sort of weird predicament, involving lots of self-ends and horrible deaths. I might talk about this later in a different thread. The family who was living in the house before us was grandfather's great-uncle's family. After he died or ended himself, the whole family moved out, as houses where people have died from unnatural causes were considered cursed. As far as I know, we only moved in there because Jin's parents had fallen on hard times and couldn't afford any other house.
How isolated was your home? How much contact with the outside world did you have? Did no one at school think your family was weird? Why did Grandpa not move? What Jin's father like? Sounds like he let Grandpa take control of the whole family. Sorry for so many questions. I love this thread.
Grandfather was a great guy. Really loved his grandchildren. If it wasn't for him, the rest of the family would never have accepted me. The other family members were a bit more skeptical. Grandmother basically treated us like a bunch of heretics and generally stayed out of the way. Jin's parents were constantly trying to move us out of the countryside and into the city. Grandfather had the final say, though, and he didn't want to leave. Apparently, it was the last remaining land from his family, and he didn't want to sell it. We were woken up so many times by the mom screaming, "I want to get out of this ghost-infested place, Lowell." Her dad was quieter and just did as grandfather told him. We would go out to town a couple of times a month for supplies and news and such. It was a small town, and when we mentioned the stuff that happened in the mountains, people kinda accepted it as a part of life. The kids at school did bully me a lot, but it was because of my appearance rather than what happened at home. As far as I can remember, everyone had at least a few similar encounters.
What happened to your biological family? Did you see any ghosts after all of this?
I still talk to them occasionally, but we just keep to ourselves now. It's been too long of a divide to just pretend we're an actual family. Dad divorced Mom in the end, so it makes matters even more awkward. I haven't seen any ghosts after that. Sometimes I'll see flitting shapes in the corner of my eyes, but that's about it. It's been even more scarce since I moved to the US. I moved from Massachusetts to California about a year ago. It's pretty populated where I'm at, so no spooky encounters here yet. I'll try to be around for any more questions. Excuse me if I take a little too long. I have a very needy Jindo mix who gets antsy if I don't play with her every so often.
Well, at least in California, you have more of a chance at running into shit than, say, New York, I think. I got a question, though. Willing to show any family photo of, well, your adopted family and you, or is that all gone? I loved the stories, but you always got to take things with a grain of salt. Also, where did you enjoy living more here in America or Korea?
I've been to New York. Not really my cup of tea. I might have some pictures somewhere, but I'll really have to dig. I haven't had much contact with them since grandfather died, but I may have an old picture of him and me when I was tiny or some of the property that I took more recently. Honestly, I'm not too preoccupied with having people believe me. I needed somewhere to vent where nobody would call me crazy, and if I entertained some people doing just that, that's fine too. In terms of a peaceful life with no spooky things creeping up on you, America has been great. Sometimes Jin and I will joke about missing Korea with all its terrible creatures, but I don't think I'll have the heart to face all of it, now that I don't have my childhood ignorance.
I've had a few things here in East Coast Pennsylvania is best, by the way. LOL, but that was more of me goofing around and doing shit on purpose. Your encounters just seem normal beings being... Normal? Hey, just remember, keep one color of each to win the battle and our fin. If I may know, where in Korea did you actually live?
That's kind of what I had in mind when I moved to California. The West Coast just has a feel of being more, well, supernatural unfriendly. I lived in the Gangwon province, just below the mountains on the East Coast.
Working on a screenshot. Incredible thread. In the meantime, OP, do you have any old pictures of the house or the area around it you could post? A picture of your grandpa or any other relatives? If you're uncomfortable with that, I understand, but it would be good for a mental image.
Here I hunted these pictures down. Some are more recent pictures I took on a trip back. Some are scans from physical photos. This was my room. The bed isn't even a bed. It's more like a traditional lounging bed for the garden. I'm not sure if anyone makes these anymore. The drawers, which I mainly used to store books and clothes, were passed down 2 generations. Yes, that is a teddy bear. This is a more recent picture of the house, taken just a few years ago. I'm not sure what caused the tree to fall like that. This is the living room area, revisited more recently. It was a pretty big house, blurred out all faces for obvious reasons. One of our Tanjindos. Slightly unrelated, but this was during one of those ancestor-worshipping rituals I held for my grandfather after I moved to the city. The lacquered tables are specially made for that purpose, and took a little time to find. You're supposed to serve special rice wine from a teapot. I couldn't find any in the city, so I used red wine. I don't think grandfather minded too much. The mom and the grandmother. The girl above them is Jin, faces blurred out. Sorry about the screenshot file names. I heard something about people finding names and locations from pictures, so I had to go the extra mile taking screen caps of my pictures. Sorry if this was unnecessary, but I'm a bit slow when it comes to technology and I value my privacy a lot.
Hi, South Asian here. I got a spooky story to tell, but first a little background of my parents' hometown. It never was conquered by foreigners. People there till now is very strict with traditions. Ancient ceremonies are still strictly followed without any bias of other cultures. Stuffs are genuine as FBME5 visited parents' hometown. No electricity and doesn't have access to clean water. Third world country.jpg. My parents told me to pay respect to the ancestors by touching the ground with my right hand and kiss it. Didn't do it because want to go on an adventure with cousin in the forest. 5 minutes later, it feels like someone smacked my head. Looked around and asked my cousin if he did it. Cousin said nope, he didn't. Was getting suspicious, so I went back home. Cousin didn't come with me because I told him to fuck off because I thought he smacked me. Parents' hometown is like a jungle. Saw this mango tree, huge as eat cuff. Feels like someone was watching me. Was kinda spooked, so I called for my cousin's name. Someone from the tree started throwing small branches of trees at me. Checked the tree if there are some monkeys on it. No monkeys. Really spooked now and started calling for my cousin's name as loud as I can. The throwing of branches stops. Someone started pushing me, but I couldn't see them. My cousin came to the rescue. I was on the ground and can't stand up because whenever I tried to, something I can't see will push me. Cousin got creep out. I don't know what happened. It seems blurry now, and my cousin said I fainted and Dad came to carry me back home. woke up with a high fever. The shaman-like lady there told parents that the ancestors wanted me out because they think I'm a stranger. Told me to drink the water which the old lady put a spell on and pay proper respect to ancestors. Next day, I was better off going on an adventure with my cousin in the forest again. Granddad told me a before on why foreigners can't successfully invade the city because the ancestors doesn't want them there.
Are the spiritual encounters there based around wildlife and disease? More Oriental spooks, please.
Yes, most are. And also some talks about creatures like supernatural beings that you can't see but they are there, animals that can talk, etc. People here believe that all things have a soul and can feel pain. Respect them and they will be good to you. Be bad to them and you'll be doomed, and even your soul can't be in peace. The place is rarely visited even by people in my country because they're scared of terrorists, but the supernatural things are legit AF. It's the real deal. You can have spooky encounters at around 5 p.m. I will post more. South Frin, again. Here, we believe that all people have a twin, doppelganger. They're kinda like a guardian, but you can't see them. Mom always prepares something for our doppelganger, like a food offering every once or twice a year. She prepares green-colored rice and boiled egg cut in half and put them in a room and told us not to go to the room for an hour. After an hour, me and my siblings would check them out to see if the offering has been eaten, and they really were. You'll know they were eaten if there's a small holes on the egg, not really a bite mark, and the rice has been partially touched. Then we eat the offering after, as it was like blessed by our doppelganger. If you haven't given an offering to them, they will curse you and you'll get sick for no reason. Pick kinda related.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.